For the time being, we do have somebody on the line who wants to talk to us. Do you think we ought to get him on there, Christy?
Yeah, let's see what they got.
All right, let's get Jamie on the line. Jamie is calling in from Texas. Pronouns are he, him, and is thinking about experimenting with sexuality and gender identity in VR. Am I right in thinking that's virtual reality, Jamie? You're on the air.
Yes, and it's not so much that I'm thinking of experimenting with it. And again, this is only tangentially related to the major topic at hand. But hey, if you are hundreds of miles away from the partner that you're sharing an erotic experience with, you're probably not going to get an infection. So very safe sex. But
extremely safe.
Yeah. But I have, over the last 2 to 3 years, been kept basically sane by being able to supplant augment my actual social interactions with virtual experiences. If anyone's ever heard of VR chat, because the advent of more affordable standalone devices like the Quest came out, and everyone on there that I've seen, I say everyone, a large majority of people are obviously inhabiting avatars that do not reflect their real physical appearance,
sure,
myself included. But a lot of people are inhabiting avatars that are not that allow them to express themselves in a more physical or visceral manner if they want to express themselves as female presenting as a male, or there's a massive furry community on there and all manner of stuff. And I could tell you stories of the amazing advancements in graphics and technology that have just tried to up the fidelity of all kinds of erotic encounters. Just imagine the scene from The Matrix where they have all the weapons, but they're not weapons, they're something else.
I gotcha.
But myself, I just wanted to see if you thought that was something that maybe a healthy avenue for people to explore. Do you know much about it? Have you done it yourself? I'm old as heck when it comes to technology. And while I'm young at heart, all of my online erotic experiences were theatre of the mind kind of stuff, text on screen. So this is all a little bit new to me. I'm a bit of an old fogey. And I haven't really engaged in it myself, though I have had some strange experiences, like a tiny taste of body dysmorphia when you put on a body that looks nothing like yours, and I look down and I have realistic looking breasts. It feels a bit weird and a little bit wrong. So I'm wondering if you have any insights into whether you think people should try and experience this. Have you done it yourself, or am I just a weird nerd?
I mean, I'll just say I really love this question, and I love that we are developing technologies that allow us to ask these questions and allow us to have these experiences. I mean, I will freely admit that when I was discovering my own sexuality, text-based chat rooms were becoming much more widely available, and there was a lot of gender experimentation and gender fuckery trying on different, text-based avatars, like you said, Jamie. And I think that there is a lot of value in that. I also recognize that as we get closer and closer to the singularity, and as the technology becomes more and more sophisticated and more powerful to maybe intensify the nature of that experience, I don't want to say that we're playing with fire, but rather that we are reckoning with really powerful forces. I'd like to think that we can experiment and play around with our gender in a casual way, but I also want to say that these things are really fundamental to who we are as a person. So, wearing drag and being silly and trying on different things is a really beautiful and sort of fun, funny, casual experience, but can also be pretty profound. So I might encourage people to just be like aware and maybe sensitive to their own needs. But I think I'm always going to be in favor of experimentation and particularly curiosity when it comes to these aspects of our humanity. How does that strike the three of y'all?
I have some thoughts about this because I'm a trans man, so this kind of plays into a little bit of my journey to coming out to myself as trans. So at the time, I was in a relationship with a woman, and I always felt weird about sex, and I had thought that this was related to growing up in purity culture, and I was like, okay, I can get over this. I'm just gonna go to a sex store and see what, if there's anything that I want to just try, and see if it helps me kind of enjoy this kind of thing. And I realized I just was not, like, no matter how much I tried to use certain parts of my body, I felt awful, and I realized that it wasn't because of the purity culture. I mean, that plays a role in other ways, but like, I had gender dysphoria, and I think more that I've experimented with myself in using things like a packer. Like, I wear a packer, and it feels like my own body, and it's not. It's a piece of plastic that I paid a lot of money for, and but it feels like me. And so I think if you can experiment with this, especially in a VR way, and even like with a partner that's consenting to you as you want to be, and kind of let you play with stuff, I think that's great. And I think that that can help people, be more at ease with who they are. And if you find out that, hey, I tried this kind of anatomy and I realized that that's not for me, that's cool. I mean, because I learned after figuring out, yeah, this is the body that I feel like I should have. And I felt more like myself than I ever have in the body I currently have. I think that's fine. I think that's a great avenue for people to really meet themselves. And if, I mean, it's probably less expensive that way too, when you can swap out over VR versus one of my Packers cost me $600. So if I were to try that out for $600 and then I didn't like it, then that's kind of a waste of money. I can't return it. So I mean, VR is probably a good stepping stone there.
Yeah, just having the opportunity
Although,
to try something on and back off again. Jamie, please go ahead.
oh, sorry. It's just, although I will say, I mean, speaking of someone who's had a lot of experience, it is a virtual experience, unless you're one of those rare people that has the psychological phenomena of phantom touch, where experiencing a virtual interaction causes a psychophysical reaction. Like, I can feel you touching me even though you're not touching me. It is, I can imagine, only a sort of pale comparison to the real thing. But like I say, it's cheaper, safer, more anonymous. Like, you're just a username and a voice, and you can change your voice as well, either by practicing and presenting, or with a voice changer software, although you can tell with those. The other thing I'd like to segue to, though, and I don't want to take up too much of your time because I could talk about this topic forever.
I find it really fascinating, but please, yeah, go ahead.
Is that I have been a lot of things in these fantasy worlds and these in these chats and these role plays. I've been genders and features and explored a lot of erotic stuff, and it was great fun. However, in all of the explorations, I find myself in the real world more and more confirming I am cis, I am het, I am straight down the middle, not normal, but like the heteronormative ideal of a dude. And I'm thinking to myself two things. One, am I trivializing these experiences for my own enjoyment? Like, am I play acting as a girl, play acting as a gay guy, play acting these things in fantasy? Is that trivializing these real world lived experiences? Because I don't want to do that. And understanding now that sexuality, gender, all of these things are a spectrum, am I missing something by being so quote unquote normal? Like, I don't feel I have much queerness in me, and I'm like, I've been and done. But in the real world, flesh and bone and blood, I'm a male presenting male man that likes female presenting females. And am I missing out on something?
Mm-hmm.
Strikes me that you're probably not, because you've already sort of dabbled and come to the conclusion and in the understanding that you are a heteronormative straight guy, and that's okay, Jamie. The world needs straight men too. There's nothing wrong with that. The one thing that kind of pops into my mind when we're talking about this is the potential dark side for people who sort of get attached. There's a lot of potential, I think, here for people to get catfished and to get burned. So, I would I would recommend for anybody that's thinking about dabbling in this VR thing, manage expectations. Like, don't go
Mm.
too far down the rabbit hole, because as somebody who dated online before finally finding my forever human, there's a lot of that going on, and there was a lot of that going on in the days of text chat and pictures and whatnot. I can only imagine how that issue would be compounded by orders of magnitude with an advanced VR capability. So that I I would say to be careful about that, but all in all, the potential for self-discovery, even what you've done, is almost limitless, and I am down for it.
Yeah, and it's
Mm.
worth pointing out that self-discovery doesn't necessarily need to be, I have revealed this like hidden and foundational aspect of my identity. It can very much be like, huh, I did not know that I would enjoy doing that for an afternoon, right? We did an episode at the very beginning of this show with Brittany Lee, who was a phone sex operator, and discussed a lot of what it's like to explore fantasy that can't even be acted out. Like, we're a lot of the things we're talking about right
Mhm.
now. Sure, you can change your body in various ways, and perhaps VR emulates that without the commitment to that. And that's one aspect of this conversation that I think is really interesting. But there's also a
Mm.
lot of possibility and potential for exploring things that never could be. And that's valid too. We don't necessarily need to want these fantasies in real life in order to enjoy the curiosity around them, in order to enjoy the experimentation around them. And so, yeah, guard your heart, mind your expectations, like Nate is saying. But I think that play and curiosity are really underrated aspects of our humanity.
Oh, it's so much fun, and it's nice to validate the fact that, like, I've done I've done things. I've played out scenes in these things that are either physically impossible because I don't have enough
Mhm.
limbs or gills,
Yeah.
or would be seen as taboo. To see to the fantasies of someone that I'm playing with, because I always like to please the people I'm with.
Mhm.
So it's nice to play and knowing that it's in fantasy. But to the point, and this is my last point, because again I don't want to take all your time. It is both easier and harder to know who you are talking to and playing with in VR. On one hand, it's usually with voice. They also usually have at least hands and a head, so there's body language. And if you have empathy and a bit of a knowledge of people, you can tell who's who a little bit. On the flip side, however, you do have things like voice changes, and one word of caution: VR technology, new technologies are very often frequented by younger people, and while I am far past any of that kind of stuff, I've only observed all this ERP virtual reality stuff is a little bit. I prefer text. Give me IRC. You can be surprised how old people sound when they're not even close to 16 years old. You must be very cautious. So absolutely be careful and be honest. Ask someone how old they are. Ask them what their experiences are. Share enough of yourself to assure them of that you are genuine. And yeah, like I say, be careful.
Yeah, I really appreciate all of your insights. This is a fascinating direction. I think I may need to invest in a
We
quality
could do a
headset.
show on this.
Uh,
I feel like,
Yeah, you should
right?
call back about similar topics. This is
Yeah.
great.
If you all want to host a virtual sexuality somewhere in VR, I'll be there front row center, cat calling. I'll be the little cat boy in the nice Doctor Who scarf.
Fantastic. All right. Well, yeah,
I
we
love it.
will need to have a production meeting about this notion. But I do really appreciate your insights. And yeah, I'd love to encourage you and everybody listening to experiment, to play, to try different hats on. I think we need to be mindful. We need to be safe. We need to be protective of our minors and of other vulnerable people, but to really allow ourselves to explore and enjoy life.
Oh, it's also a magnificent place to be an out and proud ally. Sorry, I keep talking, but if someone's talking crap, like transphobic nonsense, and you know they can't hit you in the face, oh boy, I've given them both guns. Oh yeah, I certainly have. Verbal swords at dawn, my friend. Anyway, thank you.
Awesome. All right, Jamie. Well, thank you for your allyship. And it always is easier when there's no risk of being punched in the face. The other thing I always like to mention too is that if you do dabble in that sort of thing, or if you dabble in your own gender identity or sexual orientation, like, it doesn't make you gay if you do something with a guy. Like, you can. I've said this before, but if you go to Italy and you really like the architecture and you really like the food, and then you come back home, it doesn't make you an Italian, right? You're still where you come from. Yeah, that was a really good call. I feel like we could do a whole show on VR.
Yeah, no, let's spend some more time there. I guess I'll piggyback off of your metaphor, Nate, and then wrap it up. But I did forget to mention to Jamie. He kind of implied the question of am I trivializing these experiences for people who are not cishet? And I think that that's an interesting question, and I definitely appreciate the desire to be careful and respectful. But to carry on with what you were saying, Nate, I think that you can recognize that a particular dish may have deep, ancient, even cultural ties. And for people who grew up in a particular community, there might be a lot of cultural significance, maybe tied to a holiday, maybe tied to a personal experience with a grandparent, or things that are really, truly profound. And we want to be respectful of that, while also knowing that we can order it at a restaurant and maybe not have the same experience, but still enjoy dabbling in that space. And I think that we can do so respectfully without damaging anybody else's experience.
I couldn't have said it better myself. You kind of stole my metaphor, but that's okay. You
goddamn.
improved upon it. You augmented it, and it is now a cyborg dragon.